Hi everyone, welcome back to my nutrition education videos. If you haven't seen the first video in this mini series, I really recommend that you stop this video and go back to the first one where we talk about carbohydrate, digestion, absorption, and everything that goes on in the body with carbohydrates and why we need them. So I really recommend before going into our next macronutrient, which is protein, to go check out that video if you haven't seen it yet. And if you have seen it, then let's go ahead and jump into talking about protein, digestion, absorption, and why we need it in our diets. So protein is one of the most important substances within our bodies. It makes up muscles, tissues, organs, and it also helps with hormone and enzyme regulation. So we really need to make sure that we have enough protein in our diet so that it's doing all of the major functioning within our body. So when we think about protein, the actual molecule, there's 3 different levels that we're going to talk about. The first level, the smallest molecule, is amino acids. And amino acids are extremely important for our body because we have our essential and non-essential amino acids. Together, we have 9 essential, so this means that our body cannot create them, so we need to have them within our diet. And then we have 11 essential amino acids that our body can actually create for us. So then we can go to the next level, which is dipeptides, and then even further, which is tripeptides, which is just the length of the molecule. So we can actually find protein in most of our foods. Whenever we're thinking any animal products, so meat, dairy, eggs, the list goes on, we will always have protein in those foods. So there are actually a ton of plant-based proteins as well, such as nuts, seeds, and legumes. But it's important to watch protein content foods. We want to watch the fat content because with those animal products, especially the animal products, the fat content can really range in protein content foods. So if you remember from our first video when I talked about carbohydrates and how they're pretty easily digested if they're a simple carbohydrate, protein is a little bit harder to digest. So if we have protein within our meals and snacks, it actually keeps us feeling full a lot longer. So unlike carbohydrates, protein actually does not start chemically digesting in the mouth, only mechanically digesting by the chewing that we're doing. Once that protein starts to break up in our mouth, it's going to be mixed with that saliva to create that bolus to go down the esophagus while we're swallowing it and into the stomach. Alright, when we reach the stomach, hormones are going to be in charge, and pepsin is going to be our main hormone for protein digestion. So just like carbohydrates, that hydrochloric acid, that acidic environment in our stomach is going to start that chemical breakdown of the protein molecule. There's also going to be some mechanical digestion happening in the stomach because of the different walls of the stomach are going to be moving in all different directions. So you're going to get that further mechanical digestion from the churning within the stomach. So just to reiterate, that protein is a slower digesting macronutrient than carbohydrate, but it is still faster than fat. So fat's going to be our slowest macronutrient, but we'll talk about that in a different video. So I want you to remember that when we get to the intestines, we have those finger-like projections, the villi and the microvilli to help us really absorb all of those macronutrients. Once all of that digested protein gets into the intestines, our pancreas is going to be stimulated again. And the 2 enzymes that are going to be excreted are chymotrypsin and trypsin, and this helps further digest that protein molecule. Once all of these enzymes are being secreted, our gallbladder is now going to be told to secrete that bile for further digestion. So at this stage of digestion, we're kind of at the lower part of the intestine now. So even if we had a tripeptide or a dipeptide, it's all in that amino acid form now. So the smallest form of protein that it can be absorbed across the intestinal wall into the bloodstream. So once the amino acids in that smallest form are transported across the intestinal wall, they can go a few different places in our bloodstream. So they can go to building blocks for muscle repair, tissue repair, organs, all of that. They can also go for hormone and enzyme regulation. So if the amino acids don't go to building blocks for the body, they will be catabolized. And when an amino acid is catabolized or broken down, it produces nitrogen. That nitrogen that comes from that amino acid breakdown, that catabolism, it's going to produce ammonia. The liver is actually able to transform the ammonia into urea, and that urea is excreted through the kidneys so that we don't have high levels of that nitrogenous waste in our bodies. So that was a really good overview of protein digestion. It doesn't have as many steps as carbohydrates, but it's still very important. It's going to help us feel full, so I highly recommend having a protein source at every single meal and snack throughout your day. I also recommend watching the fat intake from some protein foods. Some animal products like your beef or some of those red meats that have high protein in them have a little bit higher fat content, especially saturated fat, which we don't want a ton of that in our diet. So I do recommend incorporating some plant-based protein sources and some animal protein sources as well. I hope that video on protein digestion and absorption was helpful. So we've now covered carbohydrates and protein, and now we're going to move to fat in that next video. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next video.